Joe Biden has work to do. He has to do better. His team has to do a lot better. I'm just not ready, though, to count Joe Biden out. Not even close.
Over on MSNBC. Hey, remember Friday, we showed you what appeared to be a squabble, a lover's spat, a marital rift between Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, the morning team on Morning Joe. They were angry at each other. Mika thought that Joe was not supporting Joe Biden enough, not towing the party line enough. Well, this morning, anyone who's still watching that show tuned in to see that Joe was not there. Was Joe in the doghouse? Is he sleeping on the sofa? What's going on with Joe? Well, Mika addressed it and then went on to have what can only be described as a 15-minute meltdown about the Biden presidency, and pay close attention to the expert skill she employs in reading her script on the teleprompter. It's really something to behold. What a pro.
Now, our Joe, is off this morning on a planned vacation. On Friday's show, I should clarify, Joe said it may be time for Biden to consider stepping aside. He also said we should wait a few days to see how he responds. We're shoulder to shoulder on that. I do agree. Joe Biden has work to do. He has to do better. His team has to do a lot better. I'm just not ready, though, to count Joe Biden out. Not even close. Just as Joe and I were stunned by the president's poor performance on the debate stage, we've also been surprised by the level of animosity toward Donald Trump from people who once supported him. The debate acted as a wake-up call that was a loss for Joe Biden, no question, but not a win for Trump. The choice is one terribly bad night versus a decade of destruction to our core beliefs, our democratic values, and yes, our Constitution. Someone who stumbled over his words for 90 minutes versus someone who lied to the American people over and over again. A man slowed down by a cold versus a man with a cold, vile, and merciless heart. I think in the days and weeks ahead, as we move away from this debate, clarity will hopefully set in. For me, Joe Biden is still the man for this moment.
Wow, where to begin? There's more, and it's exquisite. If you like to see liberals losing their minds, you're going to want to stick with this because there's more from Mika. But I'd be remiss if I didn't push back just a little bit and point out some facts. What did she say? A man who stumbled over his words. Is that what Joe Biden was doing? Stumbling over his words? His brain malfunctioned for 90 straight minutes. What's left of his brain? One wonders if Robert Kennedy Jr.'s worm hopped from ear to ear and has been devouring whatever is left of the mashed potato brains Joe Biden has. A man who stumbled over his words versus a man who lied to the American people over and over. That's the big narrative coming out of the debate. Oh, sure, Joe Biden had an off night, but Donald Trump lied. Donald Trump lied. Donald Trump lied. And I don't know who started it, whether the media started it and Joe Biden and the Democrats picked it up, or Joe Biden and the Democrats started it and the media picked it up. It doesn't matter. It's all a revolving door right now. It's what my old friend and mentor, Andrew Breitbart, would call the Democrat media complex. Who knows where the lies and narrative and talking points begin, but they all repeat it to each other. Biden had a tough night, but Trump lied. Trump lied. Trump lied. Well, for just 49 seconds on CNN, we had a tiny bit of reality, just a little dose of truth from their so-called fact checkers. 49 seconds. but watch it.
He's the only president in a while who didn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world. Troops have, of course, died on his watch. He said he's put in a $15 per shot cap on insulin and Medicare. It's a $35 a month cap. He said it's a $200 cap on overall drug spending in Medicare. It's $2,000 a year. He said the border now has fewer crossings than when Trump was in office. That's generally not true. He said, or at least strongly suggested, unemployment was at 15% when he took office. It was actually 6.4. He said Trump wants to get rid of Social Security. Trump doesn't. He said billionaires pay 8.2% in taxes. It's much higher. He said Trump told Americans to inject bleach amid COVID. We know Trump made foolish comments about scientists studying disinfectant injection, but didn't frame it as advice to people. And Biden said the Border Patrol endorsed him. No, its union supported the border bill he supported, never endorsed him himself.
Wow. So that's pretty impressive. That's a lot of lies. Trump lied, Trump lied, Trump lied. Look at that. And that's from CNN. Okay. There was actually more, because he also repeated the very fine people on both sides lie that just got fact checked by Snopes a week ago. There were a lot of lies from Biden. And also, did you notice he sounded like Ben Shapiro on amphetamines? Do you notice how fast they wanted to go through all of those? In just 49 seconds, that was something like 12 or 15 lies from Joe Biden in the debate. And it wasn't even all of them. If it were Donald Trump, they would have spent 10 minutes, one segment each on each one of those lies. It would have been a 2-hour special. But instead, he's like, so no, Mika, I'm sorry. This wasn't a comparison between one man who stumbles over his words versus a man who lied and lied and lied. Okay. I won't concede the idea that Donald Trump lied. I think all politicians exaggerate. But what you just saw, I'm sorry, there's only one lie I care about from Joe Biden. When he stood on that stage and said that he's the only president who hasn't lost any member of the military on his watch. That is the most, that could be the only lie, and it's disqualifying. The most despicable, disgusting lie. Imagine being a parent of someone who died in Afghanistan, seeing that man say that. What else did Mika say? Oh, yes, that a man had a bad night because he was debilitated by a cold, a horrible cold. I keep hearing this, that Joe Biden had a bad cold. This is a lie that they floated out there 45 minutes into the debate. Oh, he's affected by this cold. He's got a cold, a terrible cold. Did y'all see what Joe Biden did right after the debate? Like an hour after the debate, he and Jill visited a Waffle House in the greater Atlanta area. Here's Joe Biden with a cold going to a Waffle House.
How you doing, sir? How you doing? You know, you spend too much time in the gym, I think. Hey, man, how you doing? Good to see you.
Hey, you welcome. Have our support.
God, love you, thank you, guys.
So Joe Biden has a debilitating cold. It's so bad that he can barely speak on the stage, and it's affecting his mental abilities because he's sick. The virus, it's a bad virus. It's the cold. And an hour after the debate, he goes into a Waffle House, a restaurant, where he's shaking hands with people. He's reaching over the food service to grab a cup of coffee. He's leaning into a woman, smelling her hair, of course, and breathing right into her mouth, spittle flying everywhere where people are trying to eat. So either Joe Biden is just fine infecting everyone in a Waffle House so that he can use them for political props in a propaganda video, or, hear me out, they were lying and he didn't have a cold. Oh, and one other thing. A cold? He had a cold. Well, tell me something, Mika. Does a cold do this to a man? But that is a hell of a cold. That is the Mount Vesuvius of colds. That's the freaking Titanic of colds. If a cold does this to him, that, you know, a dosage of NyQuil is not going to fix this cold. A cold. And people watch this stuff on MSNBC and they believe it. All right, let's get back to Mika and her complete and total mental breakdown.
So now, after Thursday's abysmal debate performance, President Biden finds himself at rock bottom again. It was bad. And again, a chorus of Biden doubters. My family and I, as you know, have known this man for decades, and his family as well. And yes, I know them personally. And I still believe in Joe Biden. I've learned that counting him out is always a mistake. And doing that now could be catastrophic for our country.
We're going to jump in a second, but it's funny that nobody at MSNBC, last I checked, a news organization, actually stepped in and said, you know, Mika, the fact that your family has known his family for decades, like since you were a little girl, actually makes you the wrong person to deliver these remarks. It actually doesn't help matters. It actually might send a message to some of our viewers that you're not being genuine or factual or honest, that you're actually letting your emotions and your allegiance to him on a personal level color your analysis and objectivity. Maybe you should sit this one out. And yet nobody at NBC News bothered to think that through. They said, oh, this is terrific. This is powerful stuff. And I also want to point out, and I'll let it play for a while now, I want to point out, as I already mentioned, how bad she is. It's just horrible. She cannot read a teleprompter. It's her job. It's all she's had to do for years, for decades, is sit there and be pretty for her husband and read a teleprompter. And now when it's just her on screen and she's got this monologue to read, it's so halting. It's so awkward that it actually adds to the level of Soviet-style propaganda you are witnessing. It's just bad.
Do there need to be changes? Yes. Managing him, management to his schedule, changes maybe even to those around him. I'll also say America needs an explanation from Joe Biden and reassurance that the other night was a one-time event and not part of a larger problem. I don't think it's over. This moment in the race fits the entire narrative of Joe Biden's life. In his personal and professional life, Biden has repeatedly risen up from rock bottom. It's what we love about him. So many draw hope from his empathy and his ability to have perspective, even right now, and to persevere when he is completely counted out. His list of losses and failures is long and would be unbearable for most. In 1972, his wife and baby daughter were killed in a car accident. He had been elected to the Senate and took the oath of office in his surviving son's hospital room to remain by their bedsides. In 1987, his first campaign for president came to an end, and so nearly did his life, when a few months later, he suffered a brain aneurysm. It was so severe that his doctor told him his chance of survival was less than half, just to survive the surgery. And even if he lived, a long list of physical and mental limitations were likely. At his bedside before the surgery, he told his sons he was proud of them. And then,
I just want to point out here, he actually had 2 brain surgeries. And what was that warning? That he would have a lifetime of mental issues because of it? Okay, Mika, you're sort of making the case here as to what's wrong and why he needs to go, because we're witnessing the fallout right now. I thought it was a lifelong stutter, by the way. Yeah. All right. We'll continue with the slideshow from Western Lensman.
Joe Biden survived the surgery, rehabilitated, and didn't look back. In 2008, his second bid for the presidency came to another early, painful end. After a poor showing in Iowa, he finished near the bottom with less than 1% of the vote, his campaign bottoming out after another low blow. And yet, the following summer, Biden would be back on the Democratic ticket as Barack Obama's running mate. 5 years later, A year into his second term as vice president, Joe Biden's son, Beau, was diagnosed with brain cancer, believed to have been caused by exposure to burn pits while his son was serving in Iraq as a captain in the Army National Guard. Beau would die 2 years later. The second child Joe Biden would have to bury. That is the lowest of lows in Joe Biden's life. In 2015, another political failure. Barack Obama chose to support Hillary Clinton as his heir apparent and not even his own vice president. After numerous political and personal setbacks, Joe Biden may have questioned whether he would ever return to presidential politics again. And then came Charlottesville and the vile, racist march by white supremacists and neo-Nazis across the UVA campus. As a direct response to what he saw as a threat to core values, Biden announced his third try for the White House. And just like his first two presidential campaigns, he was staring at an early exit in the race, stumbling in the first Democratic debate after a broadside by Kamala Harris. He finished a distant fourth in Iowa and an even worse fifth in New Hampshire. All experts, just like right now, said it was over for the man from Scranton.
No one has gone this far, finishing fourth and fifth and vastly under expectations. And when you make an argument that you're the most electable Democrat in the field and you can't back that up, that's a serious problem.
There's tremendous amount of goodwill for the former vice president. Very, very well liked in the Democratic Party, but you have to give a reason why you're running.
Yeah, Biden's plummet has been really something to watch.
It was quite an awkward interview on the set of Morning Joe in New Hampshire. Awkward for everyone on the set, except Joe Biden. As his political obituary was being written, Biden was joyful and ready to keep fighting.
I still feel good. This is all. Any Democratic candidate who's beaten an incumbent has been someone who so far has been able to get a significant support from the African-American community.
All right. That's it went on, but you saw the Soviet level propaganda hagiography of Joe Biden and the narrative that's being built there for the core MSNBC audience, the Joe and Mika crowd, the bitter clingers, the ones who are going to, emerge from the cave in Okinawa 20 years after World War II is over and still keep fighting for dear leader. Or they're just part of the distraction and the narrative that's being created right now, where everyone wants Joe Biden to stay in. He's our only hope. Please, Joe, stay. And then Joe will emerge as the selfless sacrifice for our nation, as the brave patriot who has been through so much. And now he will set his own personal ambition aside and make way for the new generation, Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom. This is all a show, what they're putting out there for you. And I know you can see right through it. No one believes that Mika Brzezinski is moved to tears over the courage of the great Joe Biden. No one. Because it's all bullshit.